Hey everybody, it's Soaping Sunday, and today I want to show you a soap that I made on Valentine's Day. So I made this soap, and you can't really tell from the top, but I put in some red and some pink colors in here, and I am so excited to cut it open and see if those colors came through. I like to use natural colors in my soap, and I did an experiment before with all different natural colors, and I refer back to that in order to choose colors for creative soaps that I'm doing. And so I still have the soaps that I originally made with each natural ingredient that I colored it with, so that I can see how it stands the test of time as far as color fading over the weeks and months and years. And so I used that as a reference as to what colors I wanted to use for my little Valentine's Day soap. And I chose a red Brazilian clay as well as a pink Brazilian clay. And so I wanted to be able to do some reds and pinks for Valentine's Day. And then I also did indigo, which is like a dark gray blue color, along with the natural color of the soap. And I wanted to try a new technique that I hadn't tried before, which is the drop swirl. And so I tried it. We're gonna cut this open and see if I did a good job with it for my very first try. But let me show you the video of me making this and then talk about some things I'm worried about in regards to how it might come out. When making cold processed soap, I start with coconut oil. I measure it out by weight into a bowl, and then I melt it down. I add shea butter that I measure out by weight into the melted coconut oil, and then I melt those together. While those are melting, I take a separate bowl and add castor oil measured by weight, and then to that I add olive oil. I set that aside. I then measure out my goat milk. These are in frozen cubes. In a separate measuring cup, I measure out the lye. This is where the gloves and mask is necessary to wear because this is a caustic chemical. I slowly add the lye to the frozen milk, and I mix that together. You don't want to add it too quickly because it can scorch the milk. It's going to heat up quickly, so continuing to stir it is important, especially wearing your safety clothes, gloves, and goggles during this point. So this process takes about 15 minutes of slowly adding and melting it down. After that, I use my blender to blend the castor oil and olive oil together. You'll see on the right that my goat milk is no longer frozen, it's mixed with the lye. I want to make sure that all of my oils are mixed well before I mix them together. So I'm going to switch over and mix the coconut oil and shea butter and give them a nice blend with my immersion blender. The immersion blender definitely does a great job of blending the oils together. It's important to keep stirring the lye and the goat milk. After that, I pour the two oils together. I do my best to get all of the oils out. The amount of lye that you use is calculated based on the amount of oils, and you need to make sure that you have enough oils to saponify with the lye. I use soap calc to be able to calculate my recipes to make sure that my lye to oil ratio is correct. Now that the oils are all blended together, I'm checking the temperature. It's important that the oils and the lye solution are close in temperature. So I do have to let the lye cool down a little bit before I can add it to the oils. The chemical reaction that it has heats it up significantly, so it can take some time to cool down. While I wait for it to cool, I measure out my essential oil blend. I went on eocalc.com to be able to come up with a safe blend of 3 different essential oils. I chose geranium, lavender, and cedarwood essential oils. You need to be careful not to use too much essential oils, and that's where the online calculator comes in hand to make sure you're using safe usage levels. I give the lye a stir and I check the temperature of it. It's now cooled enough to be a similar temperature to the oils where I can add that in. So once again, I'm scraping the bowl to try to get all of the lye solution into the bowl to make sure that my recipe is as accurate as possible. Now I'm going to use my immersion blender to stir my oils and lye solution together. It's really important to blend these well until they reach emulsion where the oil's not separating from the lye solution. However, if you blend it for too long and it comes to trace and starts to get thick, it can be harder to do your design. So it's definitely a balance to try to figure out the best point to stop blending. Now I am going to measure out a teaspoon of each of the clays, and I'm doing a 1:3 ratio, so 1 teaspoon of clay to 3 teaspoons of water, and this is to blend it together to help it to not be clumpy in your soap. I'm using a distilled water since that is what works best with clays and in cold process soap. I have this little mini blender that's so fun to use, and it's great for small little blending containers. So I use that just to make sure I'm getting all the chunks out of the powder and fully immersing it in water. And this will just help it to blend nicely into the soap batter. I wear my face shield through the entire process just to protect my face and eyes from the lye chemical. I'm going to measure out my soap batter into 3 separate measuring containers, and that's going to be for the 3 different colors, the pink, the red, and the indigo. The rest of the batter will stay its natural off-white color. I'm starting with adding the pink Brazilian clay to the first container. I like to add the colors from the lightest to the darkest. Now I'm adding the red Brazilian clay in and blending that together. You can see it's starting to get thick, and so I need to move quickly because this batter is going to continue to get thicker and thicker and start to turn into soap. So moving quickly is important when you get to this stage. I just added the indigo powder and I'm going to blend that in. Took a bit more stirring because I didn't add distilled water to the powder first, but it ended up blending in really nicely for that nice dark blue color. I'm going to put it into a ketchup bottle so that I can use it to make designs. Here's my essential oil blend. I'm going to put part of the essential oils into the natural soap batter, and I'm going to fill my loaf mold half full with the natural soap batter. Then I take the indigo soap batter and I just make some lines up and down the soap. And my hope is that this indigo will envelope the red and pink soap batter that I'm going to drop in. Ideally, with the drop swirl, your soap should be thin enough to be able to drop from a high height and it will swirl into the soap. But as you can see here, my batter got quite thick, so this is more of a plop rather than a drop, and it doesn't appear to swirl. But you never know how a soap's going to turn out, so just keep on going, adding in the different colors. After I add the red and pink soap batter, I add the indigo soap batter on top to envelope it, and then I am adding some more natural soap batter to the top. Raising it up will help to create movement into the soap and move some of those red and pink plops into place, ideally. I'm going to continue to drop in some more of the red and the pink soap batter. And at this point it is really thick, and I'm having trouble getting the rest of the indigo out of the ketchup bottle. But I'm determined to use all of this soap batter. So I'm going to continue to scrape the rest of the batter out of each of these containers and add it into this loaf mold. And I'm using the last of the indigo up and the last of the natural soap batter. It's certainly a process layering all the different colors in the natural soap batter, so by the time I get to the end, my batter is quite thick. I am hopeful though that it will all come together and look nice in the end. But I definitely don't like to waste any soap, so I work on getting as much out of these bowls as possible. I scrape up the sides to try to clean it up a bit, and then banging it on the table really helps to get out air bubbles and flatten out the top of the soap because it was looking pretty chunky on top. I'm going to use a skewer to make some designs on the top. I start by going back and forth in a zigzag pattern, and then I decide I'm going to go up and down. And I really like how that is pulling the design. And so after coming around the edges, I decide to leave it at that point, and I shake it I give the soap mold some taps to try to flatten out the soap on top once again. And this is what the top looks like. Okay, so my concerns with how the soap might come out. I was not quick enough. My batter came to trace much quicker than I was expecting, and so when it came time to mix the colors, it was already getting thick, and then I still had to add in the essential oils, which also makes it thicken up even quicker. And so when doing the drop swirl technique, you want to come up from above, and it should be quite liquidy so that it can drop and swirl into the loaf mold. Well, mine is more like the plop technique because it was so thick it just plopped in. So we'll see how that comes out. But the best part is, if I don't like how it came out, I'll just make another one because I enjoy making goat milk soap. And even if it's not pretty, it's still a bar of soap that I can use personally in my shower. Oh my gosh, I am so happy with how they came out. It is not a drop swirl, but it's a plop and it looks cool to me. I mean, yes, some have big plops of the red and the pink, but it's swirled with the indigo, which I think is so cool. For my first try, I'm so happy with how they came out. Oh, and they smell wonderful. I did geranium with lavender and cedarwood so that it would have a nice floral smell. Oh, so nice. I can't wait to see how these cure and how the colors end up looking. Woohoo! Look at this one. The indigo like did some nice swirls there. And here. So I just have to be patient and let those cure for 4 to 6 weeks, and then I can give them a try. So definitely a fun technique, one that I definitely want to try again with some different colors. and maybe actually try a drop swirl where I make it a lot faster and see if I can do it in an actual swirl pattern. But I highly recommend you give it a try if you're interested in making soap. So thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you haven't started making soap yet, what are you waiting for? Get your soap on.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you want to farm a wicked awesome farm? Watch this channel to learn what to do. We love to farm and we'll show you.